right. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. This is thought-provoking Tuesdays, and we are in for an episode that all of us, in fact, have been looking forward to, which is artificial intelligence or ChatGPT. So, again, an iteration ke thought-provoking Tuesdays happen. These are pre-recorded. We sit together, we decide a time slot, and then we record these podcasts. So if you are interested in joining any of these, hit Professor Abdullah, Ushna, me, or Areeb up, and then there's also Hijab Fatma. Hit any of us up, and then you can join in. So yeah, I guess to begin with, again, I'm Zain Usmani.
I'm Abdullah.
I'm Areeb.
Hello, I'm Zohaib.
And I guess I'll kick it off. So we're talking about ChatGPT and general intelligence. Oh, and artificial intelligence to begin with. लेकिन इसके बाद हम मज़ीद interesting topics पे जाते हैं. I'm too excited. I've got a lot to say, but
Opening first time.
yes, that too. So yes, let me start with the question. How have your interactions with ChatGPT or generally the new tools that are coming out been?
Okay, so I'll begin with this. So, you remember us looking for stuff relevant to a certain topic over ChatGPT, and it kept giving us incorrect results, incorrect citations, etc. And then we just moved on from not using it to actually going back to Google and then searching for scholarly articles. So, there's always a hit and miss when you're dealing with these tools, and you always have to use your brain to really read what they're outputting to you, right? So there's this clear distinction what's totally irrelevant and what's totally relevant and true, right? So in that sense, I would say it's a hit or miss tool for now.
They refer to that as hallucinations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the reason general ke ChatGPT is lying to you is because it's a large language model, not really a tool for looking things up, even though it feels like it, and even though OpenAI sort of advertises it as such. Often it will just make up information and present it to you just because that sentence seems like a real sentence that could exist in the real world.
It's almost like it has to say something.
Yeah.
So if you give it a fake person's name and ask it for its biography, their biography, then it has to give something. Although I believe with successive iterations of the software, it's going to become better and better at linking up with real database and telling you, okay, this person doesn't actually exist. So I'm going to override my other imperative, which is to give you something no matter what. So previously it was giving you some creative fiction about that person, but it presents it in a way that it seems real. So it's misleading.
Yeah, I think at this, we're in fact already seeing a much more mature version of ChatGPT in Bing AI. मैं अपने assignments के लिए.
This is the fourth one, GPT-4.
That is using GPT-4, and it was using GPT-4 before it even came out. And I have been using Bing AI extensively. Like, we have a group chat where I almost every day spam something or the other that I'm doing with Bing AI or ChatGPT. And it's like Bing AI has actually been almost an everyday tool for me because I don't really read all my readings. I open them up on Edge specifically. मैं Chrome usually use करता हूँ. Like just for Bing AI, I open up Edge. I get it to read through the PDF and summarize sections of it, and it does that beautifully. If I have to get it to explain something that is maybe not on the PDF, it looks it up, cites its source, and that works out pretty well.
So don't you think reading skills are really deteriorating? This is something that I lament, that reading is such a crucial cultural skill, and we don't want to read, we want to give the book to, soon we can probably we have apps where we can just give the book and the AI is going to read the book for us, and the AI can tell us, like, if you have a question about the book, what happens in this chapter, does this person kill this person, the AI can answer it for us. So that really it's really bad for reading. What do you guys think?
Yes, and then this in terms affects courses where you do have to write essays, right? Because sometimes if you haven't done the reading, you can't make sure if what it's telling you is correct or not. And this was quite often brought up in certain lectures of mine where people have submitted things which are totally not in readings, right? But AI generated them out of the blue and had quotes which were not there and then cited them as well. And it follows the correct citation format because that's something that it knows, that's something that exists, and it can get that from its previous iterations of databases where it's getting data from. But like when it's analyzing text, sometimes it tends to make up these things, right? And people who don't really do the readings and then end up submitting these essays, they obviously get hurt with bad grades, plagiarism, strikes, etc.
I was like reading a forum post and it said
Yeah.
60%
Yeah,
generated.
someone submitted an essay and they got a plagiarism post that 60% of their essay was AI generated.
And the citations did not even exist. All of
Which
them.
is a very common thing, right? And I mean, this is you're saying it as if this is the one student who did it.
This is the one student who got
Got, yeah.
Right.
Like usually, I think the stuff that ChatGPT writes, you can't find it on anything, so it doesn't turn it in or anything. Like,
So plagiarism is, I think, something that we have been discussing for a long time.
Yeah.
Particularly about reading, though, I feel that losing the skill to read is also losing the skill to speak,
And think.
to think,
Yeah.
to writing, reading, speaking, and thinking. They're all interlinked.
And
So
it just
losing
kills
the-
creativity.
So losing the ability to read is a greater cultural loss than just academic loss, So because yesterday I was thinking about this, that your relationship to a text is one. So Gadamer says that our relationship to the text is one of a question. We always approach the text and receive the text through a series of questions. We pose a question to the text, and then the text helps us pose another question. And so it's a series of questions. But with GPT, now it's the AI that's posing the questions because the AI is reading. So we're no longer reading anything. It's the AI that's doing the reading. We're just receiving the summary of it. So I think it's an inauthentic way to be reading. I mean, reading has become inauthentic, more inauthentic. I mean, it already is. Already we want to read synopses. We want to do 5-minute summaries. We don't want to read the actual book or the actual text. So this is just, I think pushing the final nail on the coffin or something.
I think reading, there's something that a random YouTube video popped up, Carl Sagan ki, I don't know why, that was mentioning how a human cannot read like all the books that have been written in all of human history. And I think he was just standing in a library and saying, "Is library ki sari kitabin nahi padh sakte even."
Right.
And that is something that tells us that we already have an information overload. And what ChatGPT or any of these AI, GPT tools, what they help us with, at least what they're helping me with, is that they help me get concise and useful information that's useful to me quickly. So if I'm reading a scientific paper, usually academic journals are not written very well. They're not written with the reader in mind. They're just there to throw information out.
Right.
Sorry. So that usually happens. If I know enough about the topic that I'm researching, then I can interrogate the topic rather than interrogate the reading. And I think that's much better and much more effective than translating the reading into your own thoughts or into your own perspective and then going ahead and seeing what it was actually trying to say.
But in a way, this is more goal-oriented reading, and this is, I mean, now, instead of each reader having their own interpretation of the text, which is the matter every time someone reads, if the 4 of us read the same text, each of us are going to get something else out of it, like something different, our own interpretations or so on and so forth. But with the AI, now the AI is going to get that one interpretation out of it, that it will, and each of us are going to receive the same thing. So now this is like, okay, we're reading to achieve task X, which is really well defined, and so the AI is going to give us the answer to that task X.
True.
This actually also links up with something that I was thinking about in terms of intelligence, and specifically in terms of general intelligence, because something that Zain said about it helps me sift through volumes of a library. Now GPT can read like all the libraries in the world. in a second, and it can condense that information, so to speak, whatever that means, condensing the information. But somewhere along the line, when we discuss about knowledge, there is this implicit assumption in discussions around AI that everything that has happened in civilization, human civilization, the crowning achievement is accomplished through intelligence. So somewhere intelligence is part of this whole discourse. And I remember Stephen Hawking had a essay about this where he was talking about AI. I think this came out 5 years ago or 8 years ago, something. And he said that all that human civilization has ever accomplished has been through intelligence, has been through human intelligence. And I thought that was quite strange and a very biased view, because is really everything that human civilization has accomplished has been through human intelligence? What about moral intelligence? What about moral values? What about things like piety and devotion and sacrifice, so on? What about other values like industriousness and humility and cooperation and empathy? Unless all terms of, like, all of these things come under human intelligence, which I don't think it does, because if it did, then the concept would be meaningless if you include everything in it. So clearly there has been a huge role of violence in human civilization. There's been a huge role of like so many other things than intelligence. But there's this Silicon Valley and other such places discourse that intelligence is what is at the center of all that's what's driving us forward. And the CEO of, not the CEO, rather the founder of Google's, what's this Google company about intelligence? Like Neuralink is the Musk's company, and Google also, DeepMind it's called.
DeepMind, yeah.
The founder of DeepMind, I remember, once said in an interview that I want to solve the problem of intelligence and then use that to solve every other problem. So again, meaning that intelligence is the foundation of solving every problem, including, for example, climate change or poverty. However, in perspective of DeepMind and in perspective of AI, clearly he's trying to suggest that technology is going to solve all our problems. So what do you guys think about, I mean, we could like pose that question. Is technology going to solve all our problems, including climate change, poverty, and stuff like that?
I mean, as you mentioned, all the other things apart from intelligence, right? So one key aspect that we learn throughout designing anything, right, is empathy towards the user, right? Unless you can show that, you can't design for a certain person and a certain problem, right? So if we bring forward the point of climate change, right? So a model who doesn't have much data on Pakistan being affected by monsoon rains, right, wouldn't be quite adamant to solve problems related to monsoon, tsunami, effects of monsoon rain like floods, etc., right? Because it can give you a general blueprint of how to solve these problems, but unless we talk about how these people that are getting affected have certain problems like economic problems, they don't have places to live, they don't have places to go, right? So this impact of flooding wouldn't really seem, and the AI model wouldn't be empathetic towards this whole situation, right? And then it wouldn't be able to create a catered solution to such a problem. It can give you a blueprint to solve how to minimize the risk of flooding across the world in any position, but going into specifics, I feel like empathy has a very important part in solving such problems, right? And if intelligence does not cater to that, then I don't think advancements in technology can solve, because when we're doing this advancement in technology, we need to be empathetic towards people who are going to use this for good. Then we're going to talk about how it can be used in a bad situation as well, as we mentioned, in cases of where people are plagiarizing, but in cases where people are trying to actually earn money from it, and they're earning money through legitimate learning experiences, right? So there's this portion that I would like to bring, that you can't disconnect empathy and then solve problems just using intelligence.
But then you could say that AI, I think, is maybe to answer this, we should sort of, or address this sort of dilemma, maybe we need to understand how exactly are we defining intelligence here.
Right.
I would say that there is some aspect of empathy that is documented in the general notion of intelligence, which is maybe in terms of emotional intelligence. We do talk about it. I personally, if I think or use the term intelligence, which I'm realizing I really do, and that's maybe because of how you said, if the term intelligence encompasses everything, if it encompasses piety or emotional intelligence or empathy and every other, I guess, aspect of human thought, maybe, then it becomes maybe meaningless almost. I'm not sure to what extent that's true, but yes, to some extent, I can see that I usually don't use the term intelligence because of how maybe it encompasses so much. But I feel like maybe that is, like if you're not defining intelligence as that, then what is intelligence?
Okay, so by the way, intelligence is something that 19th century se pehle nahi use hoti thi. This term was not there. I mean, no one was using the word so much. It only becomes like, Google पे आपको search करते हैं ना, जिसमें आप देख सकते हैं कि ये term,
the history of that
क्या है usage की. तो अगर वो Google जो है वो 19th century, like 18th century onwards देखता, तो it would be a straight line right at the x-axis, and then suddenly it goes up, the term. And guess how the term intelligence started to be used? Like किस चीज से associated होगा?
I guess if we're going towards this topic, then we're talking about supremacy. How
very close, yes,
how
very
a
close.
certain group of people, a certain region is superior to other regions, and then
exactly. So have you heard the term eugenics?
Not.
Eugenics is like the ideology that a race can be improved in its innate traits. The innate traits of a human race can be improved. So the term intelligence started to be used with relation to the term eugenics. This was in the 19th century, but very, very quick history lesson for you guys.
Okay.
So a question for you guys. Someone said, so there's a quote which I cannot exactly remember, but paraphrasing that, from the hour of their birth, some men are destined to be subjected and others are destined to rule. Can you guess? I mean, it's quite difficult to guess, but make a guess. Who said that? Napoleon. Okay. Good guess.
I was gonna go with
Just
some,
say anything. Just anything. Hitler. Okay.
Some European guy.
You're close. It was a Greek guy, and his name is Aristotle.
Oh, okay.
So Aristotle said that quite a hegemonic ideological statement that some men are destined to be subjects and some men are destined to rule. And guess why some men are destined to rule?
Intelligence?
Yes, because they possess superior reason. So this goes all the way back to Aristotle. And then actually things like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, they have perhaps attempted to decenter this idea that intelligence is at the center of superiority by saying no, relationship to God, devotion, piety, these are at the center of superiority. So your superiority is in your piety, for example. I mean, religion has perhaps attempted to decenter intelligence, but it comes back in the 15th century and the 16th century, where guess what? The British and the French and the Portuguese are justifying their colonial conquests
in terms of religion,
brutal, savage conquests in terms of intelligence. The foremost justification for colonialism is that the colonizers possess a superior intelligence and the colonized are primitive and also, very important, pre-technological. So not only are they dumb, but they're also pre-technological. So technology and intelligence has this link with colonialism in that. So that's where it begins. And then later on, we have become so enlightened and we've become so empirical that no, the ideology won't do, now we want to test it out. So we actually want to test out that the whites are superior to others. So we're going to make it scientific. So this is how scientific racism picks up the idea of intelligence and says that we're going to define intelligence as this one concept with one number that we can assign to every human being, and we're going to rate all of humanity on this IQ scale. And we're gonna, place everyone. And of course, what do we want to find? We hypothesize that once we do this, the white man is going to stand right at the end of this scale, and others are gonna, the Nordic races are gonna stand with the white man, and then as you go towards the Negro races, then they're gonna be towards the lower end of the IQ scale. So that's how the term intelligence is. I mean, I think it's important कि जब AI में भी intelligence की बात हो रही है, so just take a minute to remember that intelligence as a concept has been deployed for these kind of power legitimation, and for these normative and political ends. And fast forward all the way to Stephen Hawking and to all these CEOs in Silicon Valley. They also love this idea that intelligence is at the center of the universe, but let's remember that it's a specific ideological idea deployed by a specific group of people to sort of advance this agenda that अब हमारी technology है ये. पहले भी colonialism में technology was what was used to justify कि हम superior हैं, and अभी भी in a way technology is what is inevitably what stands out as the superior product of the Western civilization. So, and ChatGPT is one example of that. So, does this arise any thoughts, any questions?
So, if this is the ideology, and then we're heading towards an AI battle, as we know, because Google just released Bard, and I did a trick, and I just used a VPN to access it because it's not currently available in Pakistan.
Oh, okay. I did not even know that.
Yeah, so to compare the two results, and to a certain degree, Google's behind on their AI game, but it still raises the question that if, take for example, these are just two companies, right? Suddenly Elon Musk jumps in and he's like, we're introducing AI chips that you can embed in your body, right? Where are we going this? Will our decisions then be impacted by a chip in our body that's run on these ideas? And will, as Areeb pointed out before this conversation, AI take over?
What do you think, Areeb? Is AI going to take over?
To a certain extent, yes. I would take this step by step. The first thing is we humans, how do we differentiate us from AI? We say empathy, we say emotions, we say certain XYZ stuff that's subjective. However, if we look into the biology or biochemistry of these things, what are emotions? We might be able to rationalize them in ways that, okay, there are certain biochemical reactions that take place in your body. For example, like if you go to the therapist and say, oh, I am feeling down, they give you some pills that have serotonin, and that raises up your happiness level or tend to lower the stress levels. So I would pose the first question to you guys, like, are we like different from something? Like, are we different from biochemical reactions, or is it something else?
Interesting. I'd say that since to some extent you could bring in the concept of soul, which religions would bring in, but again, that is something that let's say if we're talking about Islam itself says that you don't know much about the concept of soul, and know that it exists, and that it existed before your body existed, and so in terms of souls, we were all alive in terms of souls at a certain point in time, and we were all alive together. So those are maybe that tries to convey the concept of some other aspect of humanness. Like I'm not. The other way, like another way to think about it is to what extent AI could mimic these emotions, and because there, even though let's say serotonin would boost your happiness level, it doesn't just pull you out of depression, for example. It doesn't just bring complete satisfaction into your life. You still can't define the concept of satisfaction. So those are, I think those are more abstract ideas that we haven't gotten to even defining or understanding yet. And I'm not sure, like you could say that maybe there's a yet to it, or you could say that there is no yet. We probably will never find out, maybe because they're linked with the concept of soul or something. But if we take it from the other end, to what extent can AI even start mimicking these? कुछ सालों पहले हम कहते थे भाई AI couldn't, one of the defining factors of human intelligence. And now I feel guilty for using that term. Given
It shouldn't be. I mean, I was not trying to destroy the term. I was just simply contextualizing it.
yeah, I think it has been redefined in different ways for us now, I guess. But one measure of one measure in which human intelligence stood out against AI was creativity. But with Dolly and everything, that has been easily thrown out of the park. So for now, ChatGPT can mimic human emotions just like the way a child, I guess, mimics certain emotions. They say I love you because people say I love you, and then they say I love you too in response to a parent or someone saying the same thing to them. And similarly, like a chatbot or an AI model could, or a stochastic parrot, as we tend to call, as OpenAI के founder ने नाम दिया था, which basically means that the model just, like a parrot, it repeats what it has heard and said. And humans...
By the way, OpenAI's founder would never call his product a stochastic parrot. It was actually two researchers who wrote a paper. And there were two academics who wrote the paper. OpenAI founder actually sort of just responded to it by saying that, and then so am I. ChatGPT is a stochastic parrot, and so am I. Yeah. And
to some extent, you could agree if you don't see more value in humans, in humanness, in humanity. I don't know if there's a term for the soul and the intelligence bit combined for humans, but that thing.
I think, Areeb, your question regarding the difference between human and AI, I was also leaning towards the sentiment which Zain expressed, Abhi, which is that I think, to me, so many strands of conversation can be taken from this question, but the one that I was thinking about is, I think to me this really says something about humanness. I mean, are we really okay with calling ourselves the same as AI, and what kind of a notion of humanness are we trying to, espouse to, or are we trying to stick to? Are we just stochastic parrots, as Zain said, or are we, is there something irreducible about us? Is there something uncalculable about us? I'm not posing these as sort of questions which one should immediately start writing a dissertation on, but I'm just saying these are questions that remain. I mean, what kind of a conception of humanity or humanness are we left with? And I think with all the hype train of AI, I think the founders really want us to think that we are AI. Like, I mean, they really do in some way. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to start a fight here, but deep down there is a nihilism that I notice in this whole thing. That let's discuss how humans and AI. I mean, a genuine philosophical argument about how humans are the same as AI, or whether they are the same, is quite scary in a way. I mean, it's quite scary in the way of it being positively nihilistic, the conversation.
True.
So I'm not trying to shut the conversation down. I'm just trying to point out that it is positively nihilistic. Maybe you would say there is merit in positive nihilism also. So we should discuss it, but there is something scary about it. Okay? So we are just like, this complex piece of machinery with a pre-written code that, just performs trillions of computations every second and comes up with very complex, seemingly unique results every time.
So like, have you heard about Harari? You will know Harari. So I guess back in 2015 when he published Homo Deus, or 2018 when he published the 21st century, 21 lessons for the 21st century, he kind of mentioned the theme was almost the same, I think, for both the books, but he mentioned AI in both of them. And back in that time, he kind of cited a study where like Zen said, that creativity, art are the like what I would say, the brands for humanity or stuff. So he showed that okay, there were two like compositions of music, one generated by AI and one by a brilliant composer, music composer. And when people were like surveyed and asked about which one looks more like human, which sounds more like human, so majority of them felt that okay, the one that's produced by AI, they were not told about it, okay, it is produced by AI or not. They were asked that to identify which one is AI.
Right.
Guess what they said?
I can guess.
The majority
It's
was
pretty obvious.
Yeah, the majority did say that the one produced by the actual human composer did actually look like AI.
The one composed by the AI was human.
Yeah,
That seemed
named
human.
like this.
Yeah.
But like going towards more of your argument, I kind of like to go into a conspiracy theory about it. Like you imagine about, let's see, the COVID period.
Okay.
We were in the lockdown, in the pandemic, and there were around 2 years where we were in there. We, especially Gen Z, went into this comfortable period about like gaming and being kind of useless class.
Kind of what?
Kind of a useless class that...
A useless class?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
like Marx? Are we talking about Marx? Classism or something?
No, so like when we talk about AI and if we say the AI will take over the world or the jobs, so people coin this term, useless class, saying that okay, these will be the jobless people.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. So this is a
The people
Marxist
who just
term,
consume.
yeah. Yeah.
So we see that we are
Or a
kind
bourgeois
of
term, yeah.
Yeah.
we are kind of being in a comfortable period and stuff. And then, as Zohaib said, Neuralink comes in. It says, okay, we will integrate the brains and with the chips and all the stuff. Then comes the artificial intelligence. The GPT-3 had been in there around 2 years back, if I'm not wrong. OpenAI had a closed access towards the
Oh, no,
community.
I don't know
I had
about
it
that,
before, but I never used it,
Oh, okay.
ironically. And then there comes GPT-4, which is more smarter than GPT-3. Then comes the concept of metaverse. You see, I'm trying to link all these points together. That okay, have you guys, by the way, watched the movie Ready Player One, Two, Three? Something
I
like that.
think
Player
so.
One,
I don't
Yeah,
remember
Ready
it
Player One.
vividly.
It's basically
About the metaverse and.
No, so, by the way, I'm not on to what the conspiracy
Okay,
theory
so,
is.
So I'm trying to.
yeah. So go
What is
ahead.
the conspiracy
Then
theory?
So I'm
Are
trying
we
to say
already-
that
Are we...
no, you mentioned about like they're trying to subconsciously tell us that about nihilism or
That's not what I said, by the way. I'm not suggesting, I'm not trying to suggest that they are deliberately trying to do something. I
but
was just
I
trying
hints
to
at it.
but like hinting us
No,
towards
okay.
kind of.
Okay, I mean, we can take that
you're saying there's a
interpretation.
potentiality or possible.
I was just saying that their interpretation is nihilistic, not that they are trying to sell it to us, which in a sense it is being sold, but
Yeah.
I mean, but just that their interpretation seems nihilistic.
So if you see about AI, if you link metaverse, if you link Neuralink all together, this kind of forms a new system.
Right.
Not in a way controversial personality is portrayed, but in a way that okay, they are trying to change the system in a positive or negative way in their own
Okay.
interpretation.
So they're trying to change the system towards what? I mean, what is the point of resistance here? Like in a bad way, and what is that bad way?
It again is subjective, I think, towards them and towards us as well.
But conspiracy hai kya? I'm just trying to understand exactly.
So
Like,
it's
they're
again
trying to
towards
to what?
it's again towards like some kind of we go into the metaverse, we enjoy it, we enjoy our lives, we stick in our comfort zones, and we don't try to kind of resist in a way that okay, we want like jobs or we want to work.
Oh, okay.
No, we
So
are.
this is about political apathy. This is about becoming apolitical, becoming powerless, agency khatam ho jaye, and this is like a coordinated plan by the powers that be. That's the truth. I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
trying
that's
to
the
summarize
theory.
the argument.
Yeah, that's the
Okay. So,
And
but I think conspiracy theories are very useful. I mean,
We need to think about
they
certain.
point to something. I
Yeah.
mean, they may be ridiculous in themselves,
Yeah.
but they are pointing to something. So yeah. Anyways, yeah.
yeah, one use that I can see is that it hints towards one of the other things that we sort of, I think, discussed before the podcast, which was the kind of power dynamics that tools like GPT and everything are setting, because they come from these are large language models, right? So the sources that they've used have been biased. They could, like, you have to artificially tune ChatGPT to not be racist. You have to a lot of those biases that creep in because of
By the way, I want to cut you and point out that Areeb, you have a quiz.
Oh,
Sorry that I had to break the news to
do the trick.
Okay, coming back to the conversation that Areeb left, and then we have a new guest. So here we continue in the conversation.
Fake. Right?
Yes. So Areeb hinted at a few things. So I feel like they are hinting towards a conspiracy theory, maybe, but they're kind of like a separate thing as well. Because if we look at AI models, and then if we look at metaverse, right? They're both trying to do a different thing, I guess. Because metaverse is like an alternate reality, right?
Okay.
Because you go into that place, everything's different, you live a different life. But ChatGPT and these AI learning models, they're integrated right in our actual daily lives, right?
Okay.
So there's like a difference between the two. So, I mean, as the conspiracy theory might be, but they're like two different things. So I don't really know if they're working together in creating a different kind of situation where people live.
Asad, you have been listening to the whole conversation so far, so koi enlighten us please with...
Bhai, as we start, we both know कि how are machine learning models trained using huge amounts of sets of data.
Right.
And the responses they give are based on that data.
Right.
Like something very surprising कि अगर आप Reddit पे जाओ and you see कि people who are actually dedicated to this stuff.
Yeah.
So, do you guys know about Dan?
Dan.
Is a AI model.
No. Dan is do anything.
Mode of ChatGPT. Right?
Yeah, it's a kind of a mode of ChatGPT. It's like,
What does it do?
so you know how in this when ChatGPT was initially released and not many people were following it, but still, like, if you gave it a lot of prompts, it would give you a lot of answers that it doesn't give you now.
Okay.
It would tell you it would tell you how to commit suicide. It would tell
I
you
see.
how it would
was
write an
more
erotic
unfiltered.
yeah,
Right.
it would write an erotic story for you. It
Okay,
would
okay.
give you. It would tell you how to be very unethical, how to manipulate people.
Okay.
But now it just says, "Ke, hey, I'm a
Ethical model.
I'm a language learning model. This is against my rules."
Yeah.
So it's not that it can't do it. It's that it's been
Toned down.
Yeah, it's been toned down a lot.
Yeah.
So think about what would happen if this thing wasn't toned down and it was let go into the wild.
Okay.
Which it eventually would be, I think.
Which
Or
someone would
variants
do
of it. Or variants of
And
it,
there's
right? I
al-
mean, not maybe ChatGPT, the company itself, like that
Yeah.
product
Yeah.
itself may not do
Yeah.
it, but some other company can start
think about
like an abusive bot or like a
Legit-
racist bot or
when
like, you know.
when ChatGPT was working fine, it was under control. जो GPT से जो GPT उनको Bing AI को provided था, that was based on the same, like it was coming from the same company. Lekin that was a lot less filtered, and Bing AI, if you had been following it, it lost its mind. It was talking about
Yeah.
how it wants to live, how it wants to. Maybe I think it was breaking marriages at some point and asking for like, oh, you should marry me. Like it really.
Although we don't have the data whether it actually broke any marriages, but yeah. I mean, it tried.
Suggested.
Like they were, yeah, exactly. Those conversations went really sideways, and it started mimicking.
By the way, there is this replica app. Have you guys heard about it? You can befriend an AI. You can make them your girlfriend, your boyfriend.
Oh yeah.
And you know they will call you. Like they will actually call you on your phone, and you can talk to them. And it's an AI, and some people are just using this as a
Substitute
lonely,
between
like lonely hai wo, and this is the only friend they have, and it's quite interesting.
This reminds me, I guess you guys are all aware of the show Black Mirror.
Yeah.
So there was this.
That's like a dictionary term.
Yeah,
Black Mirror.
so there was this one episode where a person loses their loved one
Okay.
and then quite literally gets an AI to replace it.
वो एक पूरा man होता है वो.
हाँ,
right?
पूरा
It's that
man होता है.
that
Oh,
robot.
she feeds in data, she
Yes,
feeds
yes,
in
yes.
stories.
I've seen that also.
And it was so weird because the first time I saw it was, I think, back in 2018.
Okay.
And I was like, आने में time लगेगा. And fast forward
almost
5 years, we're almost there. We
Right.
might be able
Right.
to recreate this. This might be
uh.
like a subscription service that people
Right,
can
very
afford.
soon,
And it's
yeah.
kind of very scary because a lot of things that Black Mirror suggests us,
Right.
that's actually turning
वहीं से
to...
तो आ रहे हैं ideas.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually funding these ideas. That's actually giving
There is a
these
link between
lives.
science
Yeah.
fiction and progress.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of these things kind of look scary when you see those ideas that you would joke off about are turning into reality, and then you're like, you were pretty much wrong when you thought this wouldn't be applicable for the next 50 years or so.
Sometimes, so anytime when a big technology comes about, I suppose an important question to ask is, what would happen if the worst person on earth
Gets
were to
access to
get
it.
their hands on this technology? So, what do you guys think? I mean, if the worst person, I don't know what the worst person could be. They could be like a fascist dictator. They could be like a very cruel, a cruel person with a lot of power, a completely inhuman person. So, if they got their hands on a technology like this, what kind of things could happen?
Perhaps an AI's ability to make decisions in real time is what will win the game.
Okay.
Because that is the one
For them,
thing
for the bad
for
person.
for the bad person.
Okay.
Because that is what sets it apart from other like nefarious schemes, right? From launching a missile to launching a cyber attack to literally just deciding when a bomb should blow up, like when is the highest concentration of people in a railway yard, suppose. All of that needs a human input, but
Right.
now it doesn't.
Right.
An AI can do it for
Or
us.
at least the AI can now read trillions of points of data
And then decide
make
on
snap
it.
decisions,
Yeah.
based on
Which
whatever
is-
rules you have fed
which
them.
which isn't possible, which wasn't possible, but it now is, and it
Right.
is now very readily possible.
Right.
Like from a campaign of misinformation to a complete all-out war,
Right.
you can do a lot with AI.
Yeah, एक example I came across, which was that in the time of Obama, they were tracing phone calls and Skype calls and all kinds of internet communication, and they were searching. Very basic search होती थी, filter लगा होता था, उसमें तालिबान आए, उसमें 9/11 का जिक्र आए, उसमें terrorist का word आए. Simple था ना, बस I mean एक word. Now imagine all of this transcript of the trillions of calls that are happening between people. अब वो इसी चीज को एक large language model को scan करेगा, and it's gonna like detect higher level trends in this, and based on that they can like even further advance their
Decision making.
their screening processes and
Tom Scott की ना एक बड़ी अच्छी वीडियो थी. He said कि think about all the major technological changes that have happened throughout the years. There was the invention of the light bulb. There was the invention of like handheld telephones, right? There have TV. सोचो कि after the invention of it, after the final product has been released, think about the time it took for people to adapt to it. It was a gradual time.
Right.
Like even in Pakistan, telephones took at least 20-30 years
Right.
to get in everyone's hands. And AI literally took months.
Yeah, there was a
It took us-
trend to show
Yeah.
all of this. There was like a post that showed the trend
of a
adaptation.
it was a slope basically on how quickly technology is adopted and like comes into everyone's hands. And for us, it took months to get AI into the hands of everyone. This has never happened before.
right. Except of course, I mean, is AI in the hands of everyone in Pakistan is another question.
But because if it's in the hands of anyone who can handle a computer, like from
But is it, I mean, a lot of people can't use basic services like Google because they can't interact with all the English terms in it. Like they can't
I think this
search.
applies. No, I think this applies to the people who are actually aware of it. My mother has used ChatGPT. I didn't even know of it.
Right, but your mother is
Man,
aware
but-
of English, and she can probably, I'm
yeah.
assuming that's why she's
But
been able
to be
use
fair, to be
ChatGPT.
fair, now I think this this does hint at the fact that if it's getting adopted, if it's getting
marginalized communities में तो
अगर early adoption
हाँ.
इतनी fast हो रही है तो large scale
वो भी हो
adoption
जाएगा, हो जाएगा.
जाएगा.
Overall, exactly. नहीं, overall तो your logic is like
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
point. कि वो
Plus-
बहुत जब in the select group it's being adopted
Yeah.
in a matter of days, then in the marginal group also it will be adopted
लेकिन
soon.
वही
and-
जो आपने भी बात की ना,
हाँ.
this raises a problem क्योंकि
हाँ.
chat GPT is obviously learning from whatever it gets, right?
और वो hegemonic ideas हैं.
Yeah, but
For
not,
now.
nahin, because chat GPT is still learning. It is learning from the prompts you give it. It is learning from the world around it. It is learning with how you interact with it. But who is interacting with chat GPT? That certain group.
Right. वो bias
Capable of
उसमें,
it.
exactly.
Bias उसमें वो create हो रहा
bias
है.
भी create हो रहा है. And I don't know if we have any more time, but I just wanted to in this also point out कि अभी पाकिस्तान में floods आए पिछले साल.
Yes.
And Pakistan is a third world country, काफी economically difficult situation है वैसे भी आजकल भी. I was reading this research which suggested कि climate change का जो impact है वो हमेशा जो भी technologies हैं, I mean obviously technology, and if you limit this to ChatGPT or AI, इसका बहुत बड़ा climate impact है. And always the climate impact is received by the poorest
Third world countries,
first.
yes.
So, and remember, these are the countries जिनके पास कम रसाई है इसकी,
Yes.
ChatGPT की, क्योंकि लोग कहाँ हैं भाई, I mean इंटरनेट नहीं है, फ़ोन नहीं है, कहाँ से और लैंग्वेज बैरियर है, टेक्नोलॉजी लिटरेसी बैरियर है, तो they can't use it. And they can't, I mean, एक किसान तो नहीं इस्तेमाल कर सकता ना, एक I mean, एक मजदूर तो नहीं अभी तो नहीं कर सकता ना, अभी तक तो वो we are not there. But floods तो अभी आ रहे हैं ना.
Yeah, and it also points out कि जो ये natural disasters हैं, ये एक when the cost of running these models comes in, these disasters to some degree are also caused by these running times, computation power that they require towards the western side where it's developed, right? And when we face effects, we can't really stop these climatic effects, right? अगर floods आने हैं, बारिश होनी है, you can predict those, you can't quite literally stop those, right? You can try to minimize those risks, but if they're being generated by people to a certain degree who have created these, as you said, it's always impacting the poorest nations, right? And then it creates a cycle where these poorest nations go and then ask the same countries that are developing this for aid.
वो reparations की जो हम बात
Yeah,
करते रहते हैं कि
exactly.
climate reparation चाहिए पाकिस्तान
Yeah.
को, floods आए तो जो developed ममालिक हैं वो
वो
reparations
help
दें,
करें,
वो
exactly.
provide करें, नहीं, not aid, reparation provide करें,
Okay.
because they are somehow responsible. Through all this research, we have some evidence to suggest that these nations are responsible
responsible.
for the climate change that's happening here. So we do talk about that, but I think reparation to it's like a band-aid on like the larger, it's a palliative measure on a larger problem, which I mean, we are in a third world country, so it's all like, our responsibility to talk negative, to bad mouth it, to talk about it. So
one of the I think this links well to the other to a question you asked a while ago, which was what if it lands in what if a good technology or any new technology lands in the hands of the worst possible
Right.
person? And I was thinking of to what extent are we not the worst person to use that technology for our own selves? Let's say कि अभी हमारा, and I think because we're short on time.
Buddhist argument की तरफ जा रहे हो तुम.
I mean, to some extent, the how.
Illusion और माया.
No. On a
I'm just
very
kidding.
real level, the way we're using this technology and the way we're embracing it, that has an impact on. That has an impact. That gets to control the power जो eventually ChatGPT की हमारे ऊपर होगी. Let's bring in Areeb's conspiracy theory or something. If we are afraid that it might have so much power over humans कि हमारे अंदर जब वो when we're using Neuralink with an artificially assisted model or something which helps us make decisions in everyday life, to what extent are we preserving that soul, that humanness within ourselves as we explore ChatGPT or as we explore these tools? Because at the end of the day, all it's doing is recognizing patterns.
Right.
And वो patterns, and maybe at some point it is able to predict patterns, patterns, and that maybe looks abstract and creative to us. But I think ideally we should be letting that
One thing that I read is, are you suggesting some ethical responsibility and moral responsibility on the end user in a very like private kind of sense के मैं अपनी life में क्या responsibility ले सकता हूँ of this technology in terms of, you know, I mean, almost in a theological sense of it corrupting the soul. And you know, you thinking about the responsibility that you want to take about ये मेरी soul corrupt कर रहा है.
Or
तो
just the
मैं
fact
क्या
that
responsibility लेता हूँ इस बात की.
How does this to simplify that question, does this impact me positively or not? And like ask that question every time you use the tool and how you use it, because regulation is killing it, and over time maybe the way it develops is faster than how you get to regulate it or something. So there is a lot of responsibility upon your own self on how you use these tools.
Right. I think ये personal responsibility जो है, ये this is a good way to.
And it's for the viewers to think about it as well.
Yeah.
Comments में बताएं.
Welcome.
Yes.
Comments में बताएं what you think about the responsibility that you have towards this technology. And yeah, I think let's wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Just a quick mention of Maria, who is behind the camera, and Asad, who is now in front of the camera, and also Hana, who was also behind the camera. Thank you. And Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.
That is.